This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 145, where we're talking about Jessica Jones, season 2, episode 7, aka I Want Your Cray Cray. Welcome back, fellow Defenders. This is Derek on Defenders TV Podcast, episode 145, where we're talking about Jessica Jones, episode 7 of season 2, aka I Want Your Cray Cray. That really does rhyme.
It does. Cray Cray. Crazy. Yeah. Yeah, I am Crazy John here, one of your hosts.
I'm delighted you've learned what Cray Cray means.
Yes, I know. I thought it was crayfish, crayfish, crayfish.
Now I'm hungry and it's early in the morning, so I'm a bit like, what do I do? Rounding out the group, I am the third and final host, Chris Jones. The titular Mr. Jones, but circumvented by, obviously, Miss Jessica Jones, who is the titular Jones.
Yes, she is. We are halfway through Jessica Jones this season. We have gone past the halfway point, and this episode is our big flashback episode to fill in some of the background gaps. So we'll be talking our spoiler-filled review, as you know. For this episode, we don't spoil it ahead or anything after episode 7, but we will be discussing everything that happens during episode 7. So make sure you've watched it before we go into it. As usual, if there's anything that you need to get in contact with us, to subscribe to our podcast, to record a voicemail for us, you can find it all over on our website at defenderstvpodcast.com. And as we've been doing for the last few episodes, we're going to start off with some feedback about some previous episodes of Jessica Jones. John, do you want to kick us off?
Yes. Mike on episode 3, aka Soul Survivor. This is the best episode of the season so far. Hopefully the story will start picking up from here. Episode 1 and 2 pacing was not for me. They're going to have to work hard to make me care about the law firm drama, the landlord superintendent drama, or the clearly red herring Trish boyfriend drama. The show is called Jessica Jones, so more about her being her, please. Yeah, well, I think it certainly picks up, with episode 3. I know we had some issues with 2, at least myself and Chris, about it being slightly slow, but this is certainly playing out slowly and really building to, I think, certainly that crescendo at the end of episode 6 with the big reveal.
Yeah.
Looking forward now with episode 7. For me, this was fascinating, with so much detail about past lives. We'll see how it continues.
Yeah, I think the first couple of episodes were really just setting it back up after being away for 2.5 years, as we were talking about on our podcast. But yeah, glad you're getting into the episodes now. Chris, do you want to take our other piece of feedback?
Sure. Robert Phillips over on Facebook group said, in reference to episode 5, aka The Octopus, Griffin turned out to be planning a surprise engagement. I take back everything I said about evil Englishmen. I'm going to intersect here and go, I don't.
Hey.
Robert goes on to say, and Jerry going all dance with the devil and IGH information extracting. And well done, Mr. Jones, on getting both threads. It must be a sign of misspent youth. Yes, it was. That's all I'll say. Enough about that. Rob continued on. The theme of control and the others controlling continues to be very well explored in this episode. Making your own choices matters, even if those choices aren't necessarily sensible. Yes, I'm looking at you, Trish Walker. This is also the start, I think, of Jessica relinquishing some control, naming Malcolm an associate, sharing information with the police, and delegating witness protection to Hogarth. Perhaps the whole series will again be about the right to self-determination, but this time the benefits of balancing this with allowing others to help.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Robert. Yes, very much. As you say, it's really, there is a level of control here, but it's the opposite of control, the giving away of control.
Mm-hmm.
Be it in a good way, which Jessica's doing, or the bad way, which Trish is doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yes, you're right on the mark there.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that feedback. If you want to send in your feedback, obviously, you can go over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV Podcast. Come in and join us and chat about the episodes as we go along.
Yeah. Now, on to the episode. Derek, what delights do you have for the episode details?
This is a pretty delightful one, actually, because it's got a little bit of Easter eggs in it as well. Yes, the episode was written by Hilly Hicks Jr., who did 2 episodes of Jessica Jones season 1, did episode, aka 99 Friends, and aka Take a Bloody Number. 2 really good episodes, actually, of season 1. There wasn't very many bad episodes of season 1, to be honest.
No, not at all.
But here's our Easter egg for Hilly Hicks Jr. His father, Hilly Hicks Sr., played Robbie Robertson in the 1977 Spider-Man movie. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
You've got some Marvel bona fides in you. It is the 70s one where he was swinging on ropes, which was always an interesting TV pilot movie.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I look back in... It's not like I can look back in awe. I look back in... Aw.
I actually genuinely remember watching that when I was a young kid. It was my Saturday morning TV with my parents, so I do remember it.
Yeah, no, me too.
Not really live, because it must have been a later repeat in the early 80s, I suppose. But yeah, we didn't have very much else to compete with it.
Well, absolutely. All those kind of late 70s, early 80s superhero attempts were kind of fairly tragic in a Doctor Who sense with regards to the effects. But, it gave it a good stab, ultimately, given what was available to them. When you think Star Wars was only really out in 77, where, you kind of go, wow, that's amazing. And that was in the movies. And of course, TV didn't quite have that same budget. It really was the kind of, the serial soap, operas that were going on.
Yeah. And Incredible Hulk was basically a man painted green. And that was kind of it for the show. But yeah, it was still fun to watch.
Absolutely.
Careful there, boys. You're showing your age. But, okay, I'm in agreement. Like, I don't want people to think I'm detracting from the shows. By today's standard, in what we're used to, a Game of Thrones $1 billion episode kind of production cost, it's hard to compare equally.
Absolutely.
But like the Trial of the Incredible Hulk, still an amazing piece of TV history.
It is. TV, it's historical anyway.
And these things has all laid the foundations. So Hilly Hicks Jr.'s father helped lay the foundation for what Hilly Hicks Jr. himself did in this episode.
There you go. The episode was directed by Jennifer Getzinger. She has also worked on Marvel before, has not worked on the Netflix shows though, but did 2 episodes of Agent Carter. She did Hollywood Ending and A Little Song and Dance. I absolutely remember those episodes of Agent Carter because one of them was the musical episode.
Yes, it was.
So bringing her style into this episode where we have a bit of a musical in a way. You've got Trish singing her I Want Your Cray Cray song and that tremendous video that we see up on screen. So definitely a little bit of history and music that she's doing in this episode. Yeah,
that was very late 90s, early noughties going on really with that musical video. Definitely. And not entirely sure about the lyrics, even though supposedly it's going to go on to be a smash hit. And I believe that's her only song. I haven't heard the rest of the album yet.
I so want them to do a vinyl press for Jessica Jones season 2, and it's just going to be the first song, and then actually every song is just Trish's I Want Your Cray Cray. But they're not going to tell anyone that. It's just going to be like on repeat.
Oh, it has to be remixes of it, right? It has to be, the slow remix, the piano mix, the guitar mix, the ultra heavy late night mix. The electro, rave mix. The bathroom mix. I think before we go down a Cray Cray rabbit hole, which we'll probably get down a bit later on in the episode. Anyway, John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for the episode?
Sure. In the aftermath of the revelation that meatface is Jessica's mother, Alisa, the estranged mother and daughter explore their past in the intervening period after the accident that killed Jessica's father, Brian, and her brother, Phillip. A series of flashbacks shed new light on Jessica and Alisa's past, from the IGH experiments through to the adoption of Jessica by the Walker family, and finally to the start of a meaningful relationship with a new boyfriend, Stirling Adams. As their shared past becomes deeper and more entwined than previously thought, a painful turning point in Jessica's adult life, the tragic death of Stirling, is revealed to be because of Alisa's intense rage. Now in the present, Jessica refuses to forgive her mother.
Good stuff, John. That's a nice, balanced synopsis this time. Not too short, not too long.
Exactly. After the seesaw of a 2-page essay down to 2 sentences, I think I've kind of got the balance right again now. Yeah.
Good stuff. I think we're going to go into our top 5 case notes. Our first case note, just because we've probably talked about this in every episode as to who the burnt monster was in the past, it's definitely revealed here that the burnt monster that was attacking Jessica in her memories is her mother, Alisa.
Yes. Meatface, burnt monster, Frankenstein, is definitely Jessica's mother here. And yeah, it's interesting that, we were kind of discussing whether she was protecting her Meatface, not knowing that it was Alisa's mother, although we had that theory, or was she attacking her? And it was an attempt to break out, and she ultimately is grabbing hold of her because she's completely disorientated. Mm-hmm. She's frightened for her life, but she does kind of push Jessica away. It's this kind of uncontrolled power that she has. So yeah, really, really interesting that, she's told that she tried to kill her own daughter.
Yeah.
I'm glad they cleared this up. One quick note, we still haven't seen the Healing Hands boy, which I was expecting in this episode once I knew it was the flashback.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird, so it does lead me to believe potentially there's more to the story than we're hearing from Ines. But let's leave that for the next episode.
Yeah.
I'm glad we kind of got something right while we didn't get something right. Mm-hmm. So we were like, maybe the Meatface was protecting Jessica. No, Meatface was about to kill Jessica. Yeah. But actually Meatface was Janet McTeer, which was great to see. Mm-hmm. So putting it very flat, we get, as you said, Derek, a flashback episode every season in one of these. Yeah. We expect these now. Mm-hmm. We got a lot more here. I don't want to give away too much. You'll as we go through the points, you'll see that I was a bit. Oh, that's a lot of filler. Okay. But essentially, this answered 1 or 2 questions, which is great. This scene in particular, we see a lot more. I have a question around how much of her face is her old face. That Jessica would not remember her.
I think she does call out when she looks in the mirror that she looks completely different which I'm really happy they said that she looks different to the way that she would have when she was younger, because she doesn't recognize herself immediately in the mirror.
Yeah, so she doesn't say anything like that. She looks like she doesn't understand. That's not me.
Yeah. That's very much in Janet McTeer's performance in this episode. I must say there's some great moments. One that you mentioned, John, where she's told that she tried to kill Jessica. Janet McTeer plays that moment brilliantly, where you can tell the heartbreak and anger at herself that she did it all just with a look.
Visually, she really conveys her emotions so well. And certainly within this character of someone that, she doesn't quite know where she is. And again, looking at the mirror, it was about her look, that she was looking at a stranger, or, the stranger in the mirror was looking back at her, and that disconnect of who she knows she is and what she's seeing was just conveyed brilliantly by Janet McTeer here. And again, with, hearing that she actually was going after Jessica, and then also just her relationship with Carl Malice as well. Really, really enjoyed this connection that they built up. And again, it's the inquisitiveness of her. She wants to know about these experiments. She wants to know how Jessica's doing. And her expression flips between that increasing rage that is unstabilizing for her. Yeah. And then kind of you get the soothing words from Carl, and you see it subsiding, and I thought that was really, really nicely done. And I think just so much of this performance by Janet McTeer is in her expression, and her face. It's just so good.
I'm complete agreement with you, gentlemen. Like this was a very good episode, and it was McTeer's performance in this was fantastic, and I think that kind of. I don't want to get too deep into what happened around that, but just the confirmation that old burnt face is actually Jessica's mother. But should we move on to case note number 2?
I think we should, from one Cray to a double Cray Cray. Trish is Cray Cray, along with her entourage as well. Yeah, actually, Trish has an entourage here. Case note 2, I want your Cray Cray. So, Do we think this is a number one bestseller? Will it top the charts?
I was saying earlier on, I was writing my notes while watching the episode, saw the expression on Jessica's face, I think is what exactly my expression was watching this. I was going, oh, okay, so this is a story about a girl who was in a TV show and is trying to make her way in the music business, but is surrounded by yes men and given an absolutely terrible song. But that's not what happens. We hear that it's supposed to be a number one hit. It's going to be a big blockbuster and they're going to get a tour going around all of the US because the song is so good. I thought it was really funny. Personally, I thought it was like something you'd see on a parody show. I thought it was really fun and I couldn't get out of my head for a couple of hours afterwards.
Yeah, I think it was really great how, so much glamour there. Trish is in her sparkly dress. Mm-hmm. Everyone's swigging bubbles. Jessica's there in a shirt that looks like it's been made out of a tablecloth. She's in her jeans. She looks like a student, a nerdy student who should be studying. And we find out that she is as well, that she really has an idea of what she wants to do here. She's committed to university, and she sees Trish really going down a bad path here.
Yeah.
Even though Trish doesn't necessarily see that herself. And it kind of contrasts with Jessica, who seems a bit like a goody two-shoes here. She's still got her wit. She's still got the eye roll, which is really good. But I just love this contrast in the club of her sat there as well, swigging hardcore liquor with whiskey, and looking like a fish out of water, ultimately, and I really like that.
Yeah. What did you think of Cray Cray, Chris?
Oh.
Not your type of music, really, is it?
No. I can't even think of a witty kind of retort for that, but no. I like it. It was funny. It's an allegory of against Britney Spears in the early 10 years before, where she was a Disney Channel star.
Yeah.
Went on to become, and then they have this, I'm going to pretty much sing a banal song with a lot of auto-tuning and have skimpy clothes and dancers humping the ground. But again, that did win the VMA. So that was the joke.
Yeah,
and I'm
exactly.
like, all right, okay, I get it.
I just love Jessica's reaction to some of the shots in the video, just where she just throws her eyes up to heaven going, oh, she hasn't done this. She's not trying to turn out to be a sexy singer now. I just thought she was really funny.
The funny bit is, though, that there's two sides to this coin. You have the Britney Spears who goes down and then starts shaving her hair, but comes back and now is working in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. And then you have the Miley Cyrus, who actually did go on to be a multi-million-dollar singer-songwriter and swinging on wrecking balls.
Yeah. So
it's a bit, I'm like, okay, to be fair, Trish, it could have gone either way, but you're a bit of a Britney versus a Miley.
Yeah.
So I find this storyline especially hard to watch.
Right.
I'm not going to lie. Just knowing that Trish is backsliding in the present. Mm-hmm. Basically, this is her second addiction relapse.
Yeah,
this is her first. So she was a child drug addict.
Yes.
Then she got clean. Yeah. And now she became a singer-songwriter.
Drug addict.
Yeah.
But then seeing that connection in the bathroom as the two girls become sisters again.
Yeah.
And then knowing where they're going to end up in 5 years. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no. This is a tough one.
Yeah, like it is a bit of history repeating with Trish, and it's kind of interesting because, as you say, that backsliding that's happening at the moment with that IGH puffer, but you really see that this is peaks and troughs with Trish, and it really is a feature of her, and that just makes it kind of even more tough to watch. I really like the argument outside the club, the first time where, Jessica's saying, I don't want to lose you. We can't be friends when you're dead. Trish is kind of saying, well, will I have to help you out with bail again next time you're in trouble? So I really kind of like that. And of course, here in this first instance as well, we get to see, Stirling Adams as well, who is there in the club at the bar. You have, again, just Jessica and Dorothy Walker there. at the bar. Really, really good.
That is hilarious where she's going, do you not know how to treat a VIP? I am Trish's mother after all. And Jessica's looking at her going, are you still using that? You haven't worked for 5 years, you know.
But I mean, ultimately leads to us a connection with this bartender who then gets fired.
Yeah. Before we go on to the next point, which is obviously going to be about him because he's quite central in the show. This is the song that was called out in episode 1 by the two fathers who had blackmailed Trish into doing their daughter's birthday party, right?
Yeah, for the General Metro Records. She was doing that in exchange for those.
Yeah, so when he sang it to her, you saw her eyes roll to heaven. So she probably now has the same opinion that Jessica had about the song at the time. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, just before we go on to case note number 3, I just want to call out how fantastic our actresses look in terms of being able to de-age.
Yes.
It's amazing how much a little haircut and just I don't know what they did.
Yeah. I was almost, there was a point I was saying it while watching it, there was a point I was going, are they using the de-aging stuff that they used in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and in Ant-Man? Because these guys look 20. Like, they really do. That is much younger than they really are in real life. So they've done a really good job of just dressing them really well and giving them the right makeup to make them look young. Like, Jessica genuinely looks like she's in college.
Definitely. And the great thing about Trish as well is just that she looks younger, but she also looks old because of the amount of drink and drugs that she's doing and the wild partying. She's kind of got that tired eye look. And so, like, that's kind of phenomenal. She's looks younger than what she does now, but you can sense that she looks older than she should do, in that moment. And I thought that was a really, fantastic kind of look for Trish.
Yeah.
Not that she should wear it that often, but, you know, certainly it was really, really good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's like, I'm 25, but it's been a hard 25.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the way I was kind of looking at it. But no, I just want to call Rachel and Krysten out on that. I was just, and I'm assuming production designer, the overall director's kind of vision that I want them to look young, but not too young. Anyway, that was just an aside.
Mm-hmm.
Case out number 3.
Yes.
Let's get into Stirling McStirling.
Yes, the boyfriend of Jessica. You know, I think all of these case notes as well, and in particular this one, are just fascinating because, I mean, this is origins. Oh,
yes.
You know, and I think this, for me, is why this episode is so good, is that it is so revealing about everything that we know about Jessica in the present. And it's not just, in terms of her relationship with her mother since the accident and what happens at IGH, but we just see so many little snippets as to what has formed her. And I think that this one in particular with Stirling, her boyfriend, I mean, we really, really see happy Jessica. I mean, to the point where she says, "You're my family now."
Yeah.
Like, it was really, really sweet.
And to the point we actually see Krysten Ritter smile as Jessica Jones. Have we seen that for a while? Like, I naturally smile. I think we saw it once in the season so far, where she was told, "Don't smile," by her new boyfriend, the super in the apartment. She's told not to smile, and she does as an instant reaction to that, because she's happy in the moment. But we see her smile genuinely quite a few times with Stirling, so there's definitely a good relationship with the two of them.
Yeah, big time. But the one I really want to call out is the fact that he's looking to set up his own club, called Club Alias.
Yes.
And there we go. The basis of her business, Alias Investigations. So it's a really, really nice little touch there, I thought, because it just connects, her back to, Stirling even more so. So I really liked that touch.
There's a little bit of a gag that comes from origin stories. Especially it was leveled at Marvel when they made the decision not to do origin stories for their characters, to start the characters off in their own story and then kind of organically tell the history of where they came from and what they're doing. The little bit of a gag is you don't need to explain everything. You don't need to tell where everything's coming from. I kind of like that they did that in this episode. We're episode 7 of season 2. They knew they were only going to get one flashback episode, so they decided to throw everything at the wall here. We learn everything from where she got her jacket from.
Yeah,
she robbed that
cool.
off a mannequin because she used her powers to get in there. We learned, as you said, John, about where she got the name of her investigation organization, where she got Alias. Didn't really need to be told, but it was quite interesting to see it. There's loads of little tidbits here. But the one that was really interesting for me was, is Jessica a thief in this time? Is Jessica really using her powers to do anything she wants? She even calls it out to Stirling. She's kind of going, if you need money, I'll get you money. I could do that really easily, you know? She rips open the ATM in the middle of the street. It's late enough at night, but it's probably about 1 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, she rips it open, takes all the money out of it, doesn't put it back, doesn't call the police to say, I made a bit of a mistake here, and walks away and never gets arrested, never gets thrown in prison for it. Like, it seems a bit weird that she's just walking around the streets of the city of New York, robbing things that she just looks at and wants.
I thought that too. I was expecting, when you hear the guy, when Stirling yells at Jessica across the street with the bottle, I thought that was a cop.
Right, yeah.
I did go, oh, she's going to get arrested now. Okay, cool. Like, that, okay, that makes
sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
so Jessica is a thief, albeit a happy one.
Oh, yeah.
And I did find this interesting. I think season 3 will be the origin of her setting up Alias investigations. That flashback episode.
Maybe.
I think that's where it's going to be, hey, now we know why you're a detective. But because in this one, it's like, hey, now we know why you're sour.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a bit, and the previous one was, hey, now we know why you're Cray Cray.
Well, I think one of the things that comes out in this episode is very much, now we know why you don't trust people. And why you don't want to show off your powers to people, because people take advantage of that, regardless of who they are. You know, it was quite interesting in this episode that you do hear Stirling trying to use Jessica. What do we think? I know we're probably going to get onto this in the next point we have about Stirling, but a little bit of an impression of Stirling himself. Were you guys on his side from Jessica's point of view, like I was? And then when you hear a bit more about him or see a bit more about him interacting with other people, then I was turned off by him completely. It's going, Jessica's in a bad relationship and she doesn't know it, was kind of my reaction to him at the end.
I think he's a little subversive for sure. And I think that is probably what attracts Jessica as well, you know, and it's interesting that his club that he wants to set up is the basis for ultimately the tragedy that occurs with Stirling, in that he's looking to, you know, loan money and those investments aren't being used, that it's not providing a return for you know, Wyatt was it who approached him to get his money back. And so, you know, that puts him a little bit between a rock and a hard place. But we see here the connection that Jessica has by defending him, but it all comes back again onto Jessica, where Wyatt wants to use her to really have her as his muscle to go in and presumably collect rents or bribes or whatever he does. I mean, he seems like he's almost like a mobster who's doing protection rackets or those kind of things. And I think what we see is that Stirling is not above that. He is deep within that kind of realm, for better or for worse. For me, him and Jessica do love one another very much. And I think he is effectively pushed into a really difficult position that he didn't want to. You know, it was 3 against 1 in that alleyway behind the bar. And you do get the sense from him that he was saying it to get out of that moment, because Jessica could come in and again, you know, give Wyatt a pretty good beating.
I thought it was interesting that he asked for 25% of all the takings. That sounds a bit more like he was willing to go along with it, to be honest. Although if you know Jessica at all, I know he says, she loves me, she'll do whatever I ask. I don't think she would. I don't think she still has a good head on her shoulders that wouldn't be willing to take advantage of her.
Alas, we will never know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about that, guys. Or Derek, I should say. She didn't have a good head on her shoulders. I think that this is what this proves. He wanted a pony. He asked for a pony. She stole him a Rolex.
Yeah, true.
Like, that's kind of what we're seeing. That he accepted her, and that acceptance allowed her to circumvent laws, whatever she felt, so that she could be happy.
Yeah.
In terms of what did I think of him, I was very suspicious.
Yeah.
Basically from the scene where she wakes up with the leather jacket.
Uh-huh.
Hearing him talk to his family, that kind of, or raise the alarm bells. It was very much a point where you could see that was his darker side.
Yes.
This is talking to his mother about his brother and father.
I have a question.
But was it?
I have a question about that. Yeah, was that not just Wyatt on the other end of the phone? He was trying to cover it up with some relationship drama that he has with his family. Is that
exactly? Once we know his future, and we've seen it, then you literally go back and start reevaluating everything said and done, and that's basically what Jessica did.
Yeah,
but without the knowledge of what
he'd said,
he has said.
Yeah.
She's just seen his future, and that's caused her to lose the happy Jessica, lose the smiling Jessica. Like that scene where they're just outside the bar and he's trying to learn her middle name.
Yes.
It was brilliant. It just reminded me of that college era I was in.
Yeah.
Where you would be so smitten. When you were 18 to 21 to 25, you were so smitten with your love, if you will, that you thought nothing else cared, nothing else mattered in the world. Yeah. And it was like, oh, just that few minutes. And those little jokes of, I don't even know my girlfriend's middle name.
Yeah, yeah.
I never knew it was Campbell from the comic books. And I think that potentially this is a piece pulled from the comic books.
I don't ever remember it being mentioned. But you're right, the scene is so natural between the two of them. It does feel like something that would go on. And you have to have those little moments. Like, we only have one episode to get to know this character and get to know why Jessica's in love with him. It's really important because we see her in other relationships throughout the show, and most of them are built over 3 or 4 episodes. But it's really important to go back and see what an early relationship with Jessica would be like.
Yeah.
And I think they set it up quite well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think here we see Jessica that Stirling becomes her rock. You know, with Trisha, her relationship has gone wobbly, and especially with Dorothy. So in terms of the Walker family, again, for Jessica, I think this, as she says, is her family. He is her rock. That's not to say that he's not shady, and maybe for people looking from the outside in on that relationship, they would go, Jessica, you need to get out of that relationship. You know, here we do see that in this world, Stirling does have some dodgy dealings and relationships. Whether that is he is using Jessica in the same sense that a Kilgrave is, or whoever else, who knows. Trish also seems to like him as well. And I think the tragedy is real with regards to the death of Stirling. And I think we can push this on to our 4th case note, the death of Stirling. You know, here, the tragedy is real for Jessica in losing her. And you get that really nice scene with her and Trish on that same rooftop looking at the black and white movie, where, you know, Trish and them come back together through this tragedy.
Yeah.
But it's only in this storytelling that's happening in the present between her and Alisa that we realize that Alisa is responsible for the death of Stirling Adams.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a bit heartbreaking to know that this is what Jessica has thought her whole life from this moment onwards. She thought, by me punching those guys and using my powers to protect Stirling, he got killed. So I'll never do that again. I'll never trust anybody else like that again. She says to Trish, but just before she introduces Stirling, she says to her, he knows everything about me, and there's nobody else that knows me that way except for you, Trish. So she really let him inside. And this whole thing has now been caused by her own mother trying to go and meet her and trying to protect her. If she'd just known the story around that time, she may have been able to live a different life and live a better life for herself.
Yeah, no, this was a tragedy in the making. This was Shakespearean almost. And John, you'll be able to kind of correct me on my knowledge of Shakespearean, being our token Englishman.
We don't usually say that to his face, Chris.
Oh, that's true. It's true. It's true. I mean, hello, John. How are you? Could you tell me about Shakespeare? So 2 points on this. One, I love very much Krysten Ritter in this. And I've noticed I'm saying this a lot more in this season. But what we see is Happy Jessica is Krysten Ritter.
Yes.
It's very much, if you've watched any interviews with Krysten Ritter, she is this happy-go-lucky knitting aficionado, and she's very kind of like, yay! And what we see post is this, the Jessica Jones we know, or the proto Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
If you will. Like 5 years, she's starting to hardening now.
Yes.
This is the vibranium is melted, and now it is slowly encasing her heart.
Right.
Luckily, we know people that can crack vibranium. The death of Stirling, I think it was what was needed in this episode, because, and I unfortunately, I do not know the comic book equivalent of this part of her story. I don't even know if there is one.
Yeah.
And that's on me. I apologize, fellow defenders.
No.
But seeing us as the audience, seeing Alisa killing Stirling, there was a part of me going, yes, knock him out. Like, he is just terrible. Then you see Alisa's shock, terror of what she has done. That ending scene where she's with Dr. Carl.
Yeah.
Where she's just like, I don't know what I am anymore. Yeah, like I need to get better.
Yeah.
But then that beautiful scene where Alisa and Jessica are in the toilet together looking for a tampon. Like, I'm like, oh, it's like super mom and super daughter.
Yeah.
That was great. Then you have the juxtaposition of Stirling being Stirling, or what we now know is Stirling. This very much conniving, terrible person.
Yeah.
With his death, and then the sorrow of Jessica for 24 hours being in the state of dismay and forcing her way back to Trish, the one person she can trust with her life and her story. And then like that scene where they're back up on the rooftop. So I suppose what I'm really trying to say is it's just quite a jump or juxtaposition between scene in this last 10-15 minutes. I'm fine, or not even, I'd say like the last 10 minutes. Seeing the jump, seeing the change in the characters, but what you get the speedy evolution of each of the characters.
Yeah.
And in the case of Stirling, it's very much the fruits of his labour have come to bear. His death.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think his death in this is very much needed.
I think so.
If I can say that.
Yeah, I think like the range of emotions here and the different perspectives that you can look at all this stuff going on in and around this bar is really fascinating, you know, from the giving of the tampon, where there's a real sudden, you know, connection there within the loo. Jessica also promising to buy her a drink back, through to seeing the maybe slightly darker side of Stirling and him willing to use Jessica in a sense to get himself out of trouble. Now, whether he means that, as he says to Alisa when she corners him about it, you know, where is he just trying to wriggle out of that confrontation with her? And then, you know, that shocking death and seeing what that means to Jessica, who doesn't know the events that's gone on, and seeing Alisa then really go, what have I done? And really pulling back away from tracking down and meeting Jessica, that ultimately she feels Jessica is safer not to know her at this moment because of her rage issues. Going back to Carl and saying, I need to be cured of these, or he will look to try and reduce these effects of the experiments on her. And it's really interesting. I think another thing I really like about Alisa tracking down Jessica is the meeting of the mothers, in terms of Dorothy Walker and Alisa outside of Dorothy's apartment. And you're just kind of thinking, well, we know that Dorothy is still alive in the present, but there were so many times where the look on Janet McTeer's face looked like she was going to batter the hell out of Dorothy. And then she played savvy with it and really kind of went along with Dorothy. But at the same time, I really kind of liked the the opening up of Dorothy Walker here, where she goes, maybe I'm not as good a mother as I thought I was in trying to adopt Jessica, and also with the issues that Patsy has had, and Trish now. And I thought that was quite a nice little thing.
Yeah, but neither of her daughters are speaking to her. So yeah, that's kind of the point. And I agree with you. This is a great scene. Also because it shows the fact that Alisa does have a little bit of control over her rage. She rode the waves of it a little bit. There's definitely some scenes where you thought, she's definitely going to punch this woman pretty quickly. But she rides the waves of it. She has a little bit of anger in her tone when she's not getting what she wants, but she is able to tone it down and keep herself held back in order to get the information out of her that she needs. But that moment when Dorothy tells her, I don't really know where she is anymore, she didn't like me as a mother, basically, you can see it's kind of going, hold on a second, I thought she'd been put into this perfect scenario and you're now telling me that you treated my daughter badly. I thought it was really interesting. I was wondering throughout this episode, because it's a flashback episode and we know that Jessica has no knowledge of her mother, I was wondering how they were going to do this kind of stuff. How do you have her intertwine with Jessica's life and nobody at all know about it? Well, you do things like this where she gives a fake name. She says it's Jessica's old school teacher. You have that scene in the toilet between the two of them where she never sees her face and they never reveal the name at all to Jessica and Alisa. So I think it was done quite well, but you do have to have these moments where they did interact at some point in the past. But I thought it was really good, and particularly that scene with Dorothy and Alisa.
Yeah. So I think in a little topsy-turvy kind of a way, we should also see about how Alicia gets out of the IGH, because she's being bound to the bed, and I think here our final case note 5, it's that really neck snapping is a family trait within the Joneses. I don't know whether that extends to our co-host Chris. Do you like neck snapping in any way?
Just don't annoy me on a weekend, and you'll never know.
But Alicia makes her escape from IGH, and we've heard this story previously from Inez about how her colleague, the other nurse, was killed, and the neck snapping, and wow, did she snap her neck? She looked like an owl, sort of stuffed on the floor, with her face facing forwards over her back. And even with Inez, that looked pretty rough, pretty sore, with all the shards of glass in her back. But we get to see her flung against that cabinet where she breaks her back and gets scarred from the shattered glass as well.
Mm-hmm. And I did like this. I know, as you say, we have heard the story before from Inez's perspective, but it's nice to have the deepening of it that's going on throughout the episode as Carl is kind of trying to encourage Alisa to calm down, to deal with him, to take her the drugs, to keep her calm, that he will eventually get her to the point that she can meet Jessica. One of the other bits I did love with Carl, which I thought was hilarious, when she's looking for her daughter and looking for information, he kind of goes, why don't you have a seat over there? And then I'll tell you all this horrible stuff that happened with your daughter. And as she sits down, they bind her to the chair, and he starts doing the injections and doing the tests on her. But I just thought it was very smart. He knows this woman will fly off the handle at anything, take the rubbish out. No, Mom. Well, then you get your neck snapped. It's kind of, she seems to be that much on a teetering on the edge at all times. So really smart of him to go, I've got some really bad news for you. Why not sit over there and we'll strap you into a chair while I tell you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I do like that we hear that this is a psychosis thing. So another one down for us, which is that this anger is a byproduct of the death that they both suffered, and that the fact that they've been brought back to the dead, that there's potentially brain damage. As he says, there was a lot of scarring on hers, and that's why hers is worse than Jessica's. But each treatment makes you stronger. That's what he says. You've been getting stronger after each treatment. So we know Jessica had X amount of treatments, but her mother has stayed in there for an additional X amount of years and continued to get treatment after treatment after treatment. We understand now why Alisa is stronger than Jessica.
Yeah.
So much more.
Yeah.
We understand why her rage is so much more.
Yeah.
I don't think they've shown how much like matchsticks we are to them. It's like seeing Alisa just go. There was no tension, if you will, or counter tension. It was just like a flick.
Yeah.
They're extra speedy. She jumps from one side of the room to the other very quick. I love this origin piece, but where we see that this was actually a narrative being told by Alisa to Jessica.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is fantastic. And it moves it to the "Can you ever forgive me?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we just get the patented Jessica, no. Punch.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was so good, that reveal, that this was a conversation between the two as they're kind of exploring each other's past and discovering things. And ultimately, at the end, you see this emotion in Jessica's face, and then that change to anger and the throw of the punch.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Because as we said, she's been holding on to this pain for so long that it's formed a central part of her reality and her personality for Jessica. So when someone comes in and pulls the rug out from under you and says, well, actually what you didn't know was that boyfriend that you've been saying and blaming yourself for his death, well, actually I killed him. And the reason why I killed him was because he was trying to effectively sell you into slavery because of your powers, to get himself out of trouble. Well, you know, those things are not easy to take, especially for Jessica, because she's been so wrapped up in that for this many years, as we've learned. Do we think there's any part of the same, you were speaking about there a minute ago, Chris, do you think there's any part of Jessica's reaction that is also to do with the experiments that were done on her?
Very much so. I think that this flipping on a dime, the anger that Jessica feels, because I think it's anger that she feels that is covered by her sarcasm, her wit, her dark demeanor, if you will. But we know she can get angry.
Yes.
We've seen her punch through the car.
Yeah.
So that it just takes her longer to build up, but when she does build up, then it's we basically it's a Hulk-like situation of psychosis.
And we've seen this a few times this season, as you say. We've seen it in the prison cell when she was in there. We've seen it in the anger management group when she almost destroyed a wall with a plastic ball that exploded. You know, we've seen her get quite aggressive in the past as well.
Definitely. So. And I mean, where is this going to take Jessica? Yeah, and it's really, how is she going to deal with this as well? I'm really intrigued to see that, because at the end, she does get drugged by Dr. Carl. So is he going to keep her chained up and bound in the basement of their house? So how is this going to work? Because she is hurting right now, and then she's going to be seemingly a prisoner. Or was he just trying to knock her out so that she didn't do any more damage to either her mother or his house? And so I really, how is this going to be taken by Jessica, and what's going to be the fallout from it?
I have a bigger question. How many of those syringes does Dr. Carl have? It is hilarious. He's done it, I think, 4 times, and we've only seen him 4 or 5 times. I think he ends almost every scene by stabbing somebody in the neck with a syringe to knock them out. I just thought it was hilarious. It's like as if, you know, he opens up his jacket and instead of Rolexes on the inside to sell, it's just filled with syringes that he has at all times in case someone goes a little bit beyond the aggression that he wants. I thought it was hilarious. But I don't know why. It's not supposed to be hilarious. It's supposed to be that Jessica's been kidnapped effectively by this guy, but it just made me smile.
Again, I'm just wondering, is it potentially he's trying to protect Jessica from Alisa?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, no, he just punched her. She is twice as crazy and twice as strong as you.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you asleep because she's going to rip you in half.
Exactly. Or, of course, it is his home that they're in, so is he just, you know, trying to protect the walls from being knocked down as well?
Absolutely. I like the idea that he always ends his scenes on a syringe. It's just like, it's just almost like you can imagine this 90s theme song in the end, and it's just like da 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 da. Shh. He's just gonna go. So he goes to the shops. He picks up some bread. He goes to the cashier, pays for the bread, and then just syringes the guy, and then walks off. It's like, I'm a doctor. I syringe people. It's fine.
That would truly fit in with the Marvel TV shows of the late 70s, early 80s.
Probably.
The syringer.
Yes.
And on that note, that's our final case note. Anybody have any notes for the episode?
Yeah, just one from me. I'm going to jump in here. It looks like the film that Trish and Jessica are watching on the building at the top of the roof at the end of the episode is Orson Welles' Touch of Evil.
Right.
The reason that's kind of poignant to a degree is that this film is famous, among other things, for its endless tracking shots.
Right.
Where they used to use the cranes and they would track up and then back down and things like that. So we actually see one of these tracking shots, which is it follows the thief in to the car boot and then pulls up and out.
Yeah.
And up, I should say, as the scene continues. As you see the people, the PI is, or the person is watching, come back to their car. Why is a tracking shot important, I hear you ask? Well, obviously, Jessica Jones, MCU, Netflix. Netflix. Daredevil. We have the poignant Daredevil one-shot tracking.
Impressive, Chris. Impressive.
Yes.
Yeah,
fantastic. Although Jessica Jones has never had a tracking shot, I just thought I thought of that and I went, oh yeah, Daredevil.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The
fantastic.
one-shot hallway fight scene.
Yeah, I've got a couple of notes. For Whiskey Watch, we have Knob Creek.
That's right.
A bottle of Knob Creek being taken by Stirling, and then we see that Knob Creek bourbon becomes a bourbon of choice for the couple. It's a lovely sour mash that is perfectly goes with Coca-Cola for a nice bourbon and Coke. Absolutely. So
and of course Jessica would start off a relationship with her first major boyfriend over a bottle of whiskey. So
So this probably helps to deepen Jessica's love of whiskey, because certainly she's drinking whiskey in the club right at the start of this episode, whilst Trish is doing her twerky McTwerkerson stuff on stage. The other note I have is we see Leslie Hansen here in the background, which is really interesting because when Alisa returns from killing Stirling, first of all, I love the fact that as she walks back into the IGH facility, all the nurses go running for cover, all running away from her because of what she did previously to escape. But then when finally that connection between Carl and Alisa becomes evident, he starts to calm her down. He says, we'll find a way to cure these rages. But Leslie Hansen there in the background says, I want nothing to do with this, and walks off. And of course, we know that she has been killed and murdered as well, presumably by Alisa, but we actually don't know that. Kind of interesting to see whether her storyline reemerges in some way.
Yeah, like it is kind of interesting. We're on episode 7 now, and it is interesting that we aren't on a big bad right now. And both Dr. Carl and Alisa both seem to be on the good side and not even connected to being bad people of this season. So it is quite interesting. Will we get somebody else has been running in parallel and killing all these people connected to IGH? Will we get somebody completely different revealed in future? It's just quite interesting at this point, 7 episodes in.
I think you're right. I think what we found so far in this first act, if you will, this is the first part 1, and we're going to get part 2 now, as we go into episode 8, is that we were led to believe that Malice and Alicia are the bad guys. And then what we hear is, as Alicia comes back in, I'm going to go get Kozlov.
Yes.
He goes, no. We know Kozlov is dead now.
Mm-hmm.
So if Kozlov was the bad guy in that situation, who's worse than him?
Yes, absolutely.
So I think you're right. I think what we're getting is that someone is cleaning house. Mm-hmm. Whoever was worse than Kozlov, or whoever Kozlov worked for, is cleaning house.
Or on behalf of him, maybe they're trying to clean up his past now that he's passed away. Maybe it's something like that. But yeah, it does feel like we don't have much information about that side of things. Since Jessica visited his funeral in episode 2, wasn't it? We haven't really seen much more of what happened with Kozlov. So yeah, it'll be intriguing to find out. One of the other things, obviously, about this character of Alisa, I think we could probably all guess this, but I do want to call it out. Brian Michael Bendis did name the character Alisa as It is an anagram, a very simple anagram of alias investigations.
Yes.
So that's one of the little points about Alisa, the character. She doesn't have a huge amount to play in the comic books. There's not a huge storyline with her at all. But Chris, did you have any other points about her?
Not very much, as you said. Like she was not very much in the comic books. She doesn't play this superpowered hero as she has now in the season of the TV show. The interesting thing we learned is her last name is Campbell. And that's now Jessica's middle name.
That's right, yeah.
So that's about what I've got on it.
Mm-hmm.
But just on your last point, in terms of who could be cleaning house for Kozlov in his name, I'm going back to the guy in the wheelchair. I'm bringing it back. 7 episodes in, or I should say 6 additional episodes in. He's been super powered. He grows back his legs, or whatever. It's him.
Isaiah. Okay. Interesting, Chris. We will find out in the future.
It could be. Because actually that person that killed Will Simpson, we've just assumed it's her. It wasn't really shown, was it?
It wasn't. It was just shown that it was a powered person that jumped over their heads and got out of the building, wasn't it?
Yeah. Now there was a neck snap involved, so obviously there's a tie there to Alisa, but yeah, it'd be interesting now. Yeah. Are we still to have that assassin revealed?
Absolutely. Good stuff, I think. With that, all of our notes and all of our case notes completed. Chris, do you defend Jessica Jones Season 2, Episode 7, aka I Want Your Cray Cray?
I do defend it, but it's a tough one, gentlemen. There was a lot of filler in this episode, and I don't mean that in a bad way, and we've talked about it, and it's good. But what you could have done, you could have compressed a lot of this into a lot shorter time frame. They could have given us a lot more. Is what I'm trying to kind of get at. I don't know. I found it slightly slow, slightly plodding.
Okay.
While it wasn't. I know it wasn't. I know it was the same pace that we've been getting, but just this, I felt like, oh, okay, I get it. Why can't you just speed things up a bit? I was very happy, though, what they gave us, the origin they gave us, or this flashback. Like I said, the 3rd season flashback should be about how she opens the PI joint on her first day of opening Alias investigations. But it was not, as you said, Derek, they gave us a lot of these nods that, oh, that's how Alias came about, and things like that. And that's where the leather jacket came from. So, yes, I do defend it because of what it did. I was borderline because of how they did it. If that makes sense.
Okay, I get you. It's quite interesting that you said that. I looked at this episode while I was watching it, and for some reason, I don't know why I misread it, but I thought the episode was 37 minutes long. I thought they were just doing a flashback episode that was really short, and thinking that it was 37 minutes long, I actually thought it moved really fast. For some reason, I don't know why, but it is quite interesting that you mentioned the length of the episode, that it could have been shorter for this, but that's what I actually saw out of the corner of my eye when I was looking at the screen. Anyway.
Well, actually, you say that though. This episode was what, 52 minutes?
It's one of the longest. It's one of the longest of the season. Yeah, 57 minutes.
Yes, yeah, 57 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's actually, I see what I mean. They could have shaved off an additional 7. If they had made of this 37 minutes, I that would have been amazing. It would have been you're done, and you're like, wow, it was short. It was impactful. It was everything I wanted in a flashback.
I don't know what I would have cut. I think I have a feeling I enjoyed being back in that time especially with Jessica and Trish. I really enjoyed being back in that time with them. I enjoyed the time with Dorothy, seeing what she was like back then as well. And if you're only going to do it once, you might as well do it all in one episode. That's my feeling, obviously. But I totally understand, Chris, if it wasn't your bag.
So then, Derek, based on what I've said in that quick discussion, do you defend this episode of Jessica Jones?
I think you've heard I do defend Jessica Jones on most episodes, particularly this episode. For me, I think a flashback episode with seeing a young Jessica Jones before she's the way that she is now, and seeing everything that led her to be the way she is now. Like, I mean, that moment in the bathroom with Trish where she gets the club owner up against the glass or up against the mirror and grabs his head, pulls it back and pushes him within an inch of smacking the mirror again. That's the Jessica Jones we see now in the current series, in the current timeline. That's the one we spent 2.5 seasons or 1.5 seasons with. So seeing her being happy, seeing her have a very different life, and seeing all the reasons she's become the Jessica Jones she is now being wrong, all of the knowledge that she has about what happened in her life. Remember, she's kept this leather jacket from that point onwards. That's how much this time with Stirling meant to her. Seeing all that play out and seeing a very different Jessica Jones becoming the Jessica Jones that we know now, I think was really important to see. And that's why I defend this episode. John, our final defend of this episode. Do you defend episode 7, season 2, aka I Want Your Cray Cray? I just want to keep saying that.
I do defend this episode of Jessica Jones. I would give this 4 Cray Cray neck snaps out of 5. But having said that, when I first watched it, I was, like Chris, pretty lukewarm about it. And I didn't feel that the reveal at the end was a big enough kind of smash bang wallop to really lift me out of it.
Right.
But strangely, as we've discussed it here on the podcast, my mind and my view has changed actually, because I think what this did, yes, it was a full flashback episode, but it gave us so much reveal about Jessica Jones in terms of her origins, which I found fascinating. Down to, the little touches such as her coat, down to why she's called her PI firm Alias Investigations, the shared history between her mother, Alisa, and herself. And we haven't known up till now that Alisa has a massive impact on Jessica and who she is to become through killing Stirling. And I think just the range of different perspectives in that triangle of Alisa, Jessica, and Stirling is fascinating. Is Stirling good or bad? Yet for Jessica, he is her absolute rock and family. And then we see Alisa really rip that from Jessica without realizing she's doing it because of these side effects. And I think on top of that, then I really enjoyed seeing Trish's descent. It's been talked about, but here we actually see it. And I think that's really revealing, as well as this relationship between Alisa and Carl Malice, that connection that they have, and that is why they're still together here in this moment. And then coming to, no, I don't forgive you, Mum, because you've effectively just said that my life has been dictated by a moment that you intervened in my life. And she doesn't, it really just tops it off for me. So I found it really fascinating as we were discussing this, how I was looking at aspects of this episode from a very different way than when I had first watched it. So yeah, I absolutely defend this episode of Jessica Jones.
Excellent. That's really interesting that you say that, John. Having that discussion has helped your opinion of the episode almost. 2 other quick things that I kind of forgot to mention that I really liked about the episode. Number 1 was Dr. Carl taking responsibility for everything that Alisa had done. I thought that was a really good scene because he's effectively saying to her, well, it's my fault. If I hadn't done these experiments on you, you wouldn't have this rage, and therefore you wouldn't have gone and killed my nurses. You wouldn't have gone and killed Jessica's boyfriend. I thought that was quite interesting and does show why their relationship is the way that it is. The other scene is slightly different. It's kind of the opposite, actually. The girl who is trying to stop Jessica from getting back in to see Trish when Trish is in the bathroom. Did you hear what she said to Jessica about why Trish was going down on the nightclub owner? She basically said, well, he gave us good drugs, so I've basically whored Trish out to pay for those drugs. Like that, showing those friends that Trish has, and obviously no longer has. Jessica's her only friend now. But you see why the two of them are completely bonded, because her experience of other friends around her was this. They would allow her to go down on her knees in the bathroom to pay for drugs for their gang. That's crazy. Just that moment, it solidifies why Trish and Jessica are have such a strong bond. And I thought it was a really good moment. Just a little throwaway line, but a really tough situation. You see why Jessica gets so angry as well, at that moment.
Yet so much stuff here going on in this episode on the history of Jessica Jones. So it was really good. And I think any other comments or discussion points on this episode or any other episode of this series of Jessica Jones, please head on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV podcast, or leave us a voicemail or an email through our website. Just go to Defenders TV podcast. And of course, if you want to hear our continued coverage of Jessica Jones season 2, then please share the love, rate us, subscribe to us on the podcast. Just head on over to defenderstvpodcast.com and go through our subscribe area where you can subscribe to the podcast catcher of your choice.
Yep, thanks for that, fellow Defenders, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Jessica Jones. We'll be back next time with episode 8 of Jessica Jones, Ain't We Got Fun? That's obviously named after the song that Alisa's been playing on the piano for the last few episodes.
Yes.
Good catch. Good catch.
Yeah, what relevance does that have, I wonder? Be interesting.
I will be researching the lyrics during the week.
You go do that. So, fellow Defenders, thank you so much for joining us, and I have one favour to ask. I've been asking you to tell your sisters throughout this season in honour of International Women's Day and Jessica Jones. As always, we really appreciate your views, your reviews, your comments, so let us know. And we'll see you next episode.
Yep, thanks for listening. Talk to you again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in and listening. It's been great speaking with you. I'm off to go and down a bottle of Knob Creek. With that, we can't wait to speak with you next time. Bye.